To me, it was Ben and Jerry in that case. But that's a different studio, eh?
Who's Ben and Jerry? Tom and Jerry.
Oh. Tom and Jerry.
You mean the cat and the mouse?
No, Ben and Jerry is an ice cream, yes. You know, we had Disney Channel growing up for a short while.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the other channel was basically Ben and Jerry.
Tom and Jerry.
Tom and Jerry. I don't think
like you had a channel that was only Ben and Jerry's commercials on a loop.
Hello, to whom it may concern, and welcome to Films and Fika, the podcast where we speak about movies, hence the film in the title, and drink coffee, hence the Fika in the title. Literally meaning to have coffee. Me and Mao are here to discuss the very exciting and thrilling movie, To Kill a Deer, the Sacred Deer.
Killing of a Sacred Deer.
Frick.
Yeah, by Yorgos Lanthimos. It's a woozy for sure.
It's a woozy. That's the way to put it. I'm conflicted. I can tell you that right away. I'm not too sure. I think I enjoyed The Lobster more.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It's gonna be interesting then. Yeah, for sure.
A little tease. Well, yeah, welcome to another podcast. Grab a cup of coffee, sit down, or continue your workout routine, whatever you're doing, maybe on the drive. In that case, drive safe, my dear friend.
How's your social media break going?
Oh, yeah. It's been...
Is it like a yay, a nay?
It's like a eh. Honestly. It's been like 2 weeks by now since we are recording slightly later than we usually do. And I'm not very affected. As predicted, bathroom breaks are kind of boring. And going to bed is not very... it's... I'm still kind of struggling to getting used to falling asleep. But I think that I've essentially replaced my unnecessary usage of scrolling through feeds and stuff with watching Netflix. I've been binging a few shows, which is unlike me. A lot of cartoons on Disney, honestly. But no, I haven't felt any. You know, do you call it abstinence? Does that translate?
Yeah.
I don't miss it, really. Big surprise. The big thing. The biggest takeaway from this is going back to it, definitely. But no, there hasn't been many times where I've been missing it and wanting to actually go through TikTok. But until so far, I haven't been truly bored either. So maybe that's a factor in that. Bathroom breaks are boring. So you've
kept busy and stuff.
Yeah. I watch a lot of movies, which is nice. I watch news, which is weird. But I would like to believe that instead of getting stuck in scrolling Instagram, I'm actually getting more stuff done. I would like to believe. I'm not productive, but I would believe that I would easily... The time would just fly by if I were on social medias. Instead, I'm watching movies. But it's nice. It's nice to actually watch movies. Actually, go through my fucking Netflix list.
Watch list.
Go through it all. I watched Minority Report yesterday. Haven't seen that movie. Wow, it's cool.
It's so dope.
It's cool. And Tom Cruise is just sprinting, and I love it. Yeah. Any follow-up question to that? It's really no surprise with my. With me quitting social media, but it is what it is. If anything, I'm missing TikTok for sure. Well, I was just going over your Letterboxd looking for mutual films that we have seen or wanted to see on our watch list. And I noticed a pattern. I don't know. You have some explaining to do when it comes to your reviews of films.
Okay.
Like,
sure.
Why? Okay, when you go ahead and you finish the movie and you go on Letterboxd, you log it. What makes you actually like the film? Because on your liked movies, because when I go about it, I of course is like, well, this is a likable film. This is one of my favorites. I'm gonna give it a like. So to have a good library of movies on your liked list on Letterboxd, you have Happy Death Day 2, for example, Friends with Benefits, Furious 5, 6, and 7. That's almost all of the Fast and Furious movies. Even worse so. Where is 1, 2, 3, 4? Maybe they're on there. But why is 5, 6, and 7 of the Fast and Furious on your Letterboxd? I know you enjoy it. You don't have to explain that a whole bunch. But The Mummy, though. Why the frick have you liked The Mummy?
Fuck you. Wait, which one did I like?
The first one,
right?
Yeah.
With Brendan Fraser?
I don't know his name.
Yeah. People should. Okay.
Okay.
I don't know why people have an issue with The Mummy. Okay.
The Mummy is one of those films on TV that is way cheap for TV channels because no one want to see The Mummy.
The Mummy is an amazing movie. Okay, The Mummy is, especially the first one. I will concede that the second one is and then we won't talk about the third one. But the first one is the perfect balance of like horror, action, adventure, funny movie kind of thing that exists.
With a shit concept.
I wish there were more movies. No, it's not a shit concept. It's like,
we're gonna raid some mummies, dude. Whoa. I want to be the new pharaoh. Oh yeah, that's totally gonna work, dude.
You're such a fucking hater. It's like, I would argue that while it is not as good, nowhere near as good as Indiana Jones, it does capture the same feeling of adventure that exists within Indiana Jones. And that's all I'm looking for here.
The Mummy has approximately the same sensation as watching the Nicolas Cage movie. What's it called? The Independence?
National Treasure.
That's approximately in the same league.
So, yeah, it is on the same.
And that's a good level to be on.
National Treasure is dope. Okay.
Oh my god.
I don't even have like a guiltiness about it. I think it's dope. It's like the Da Vinci Code. Like the Da Vinci Code is a good movie.
Complex. Oh.
Look, man. Some people like their Transformers. Some people like their like shitty Michael Bay shit. I enjoy action adventure movies that have to do with like treasure hunting or like that type of stuff.
Okay, fair enough. So you actually do use the button like as saving it to your favorites, essentially. I was just looking to clarify why Happy Death Day 2, etc. was on there, but I guess I got my answer.
Okay. Here's the thing about Happy Death Day 2.
You don't have to defend every single movie, but
I'm not gonna defend every single one. If a movie has a heart next to it, so if it has a like, it means that independent of the rating, I enjoy the movie enough that I will rewatch it.
Okay.
Like if it has a heart, it's probably because I would rewatch it and I would like enjoy the idea of rewatching it. But that is something that I started implementing recently. So there's stuff that I need to look over where it's like, why does this have a heart and why does this doesn't have one? You know? But like, it's like me liking The Mummy and National Treasure. I think they're on the same level like the new Jumanji movies.
I want to see those actually. Yeah,
they're just like really fun, man. Like I'm not looking for anything else right now. It's like, and then Happy Death Day. I think you would enjoy them because of the time loop, and because they're not actually.
Sure.
I think time loops are fun, but then again, I thought you were gonna like Tenet because of the time shit, and you didn't like Tenet, so I don't know.
Convoluted. No, okay, I can respect that. I now when I understand how you're looking into it, because yes, you had some ratings of the film that conflicted with you liking them for sure. But that makes sense.
So like when it comes to my rating, I try to be as fair and objective to the actual movie, right? Like how. So for example, there's a movie that I really enjoy in concept, and while I was watching it, it's called Before I Wake. It's about this little kid whose dreams become real while he's asleep. So like if he's dreaming about butterflies suddenly come into existence in his house. And the whole idea of the movie is like what happens when your nightmares, like when he has nightmares, those also become real. So I really dig the concept. And I thought, like, watching it, I like how it was done visually. However, it's a really stupid movie. So it has a 2.5 because realistically the script is not that strong and the acting is not that great. But I enjoyed it because it's a cool concept. But yeah, that's why I like the Mummy. And that's why the Fast and Furious franchise is there. Because, like, I rewatched them, I think, from the 4th one to the newest one. And they're dope.
To segue back and into recommendations, though, I feel, as I said, I've been watching a lot of more movies, and I'm really appreciating it. I feel like instead of putting on a YouTube video and just lounging in the couch watching YouTube, and then autoplay is on for some reason because I forgot to turn it off last time, or maybe that was just I think YouTube updated and turned it back on or something. They really want you to watch another video, and so you do, and then autoplay is recommending another great video, and so you watch that one. You don't have that with Netflix, at least not in the same way. You get trailers all the time these days, and it's kind of sucky.
Yeah.
But you're not gonna commit two more hours after just sitting through one movie. So I've been seeing a lot of more films, and my recommendation is a Netflix original, I think.
Ooh.
It is definitely a Netflix film. Is it?
You usually shit all over Netflix original films.
I actually, we briefly spoke about it because I was very excited to see my recommendation of the week, The Platform. And so I suggested it as a movie for the podcast, which we still could if you're interested, but I couldn't wait, so I watched it. And it's pretty cool. It came out like almost a year ago now. It's
I know, it's insane.
I don't know if you want to pronounce his name. If you want to look it up instead. It's in Spanish, and it's very I bet it's very cheaply made. It's kind of reminiscent of The Cube, if anyone has seen that, where they're just going from the same looking room to every other looking room, and the entire like message of it all is also very reminiscent of Denis Villeneuve's short film Next Floor. Exactly the same concept. So if you've seen that short film or the other way around, pretty much the same movie, just that The Platform is in a feature-length format. Do you got the name?
Dude, you talk about Denis Villeneuve and it just makes me want to cry because so the director is called Galder Castelu Urrutia. And yeah, it's a Spanish movie, and it came out on Netflix, and it did come out earlier this year. So I think it was like January or February. It was right before you and I started doing the podcast, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, like when it came out, I heard a lot of good things about it, and kind of lives up to the expectations of that. I mean, it's after all a Netflix film and all. If I were to give it some negative input, it's kind of simple. Like the message, it's very much in your face, and it's not subtle about it. Yeah. It's not a metaphor. It's just a strong message. Very political, but I'm all about it. It's kind of cool. The ending is kind of vague, but nevertheless, it's a recommendation of mine. It's not your typical film. It's more artsy and more very abstract in every way, and very gory. There is cannibalism, and the human condition is present. So I think I literally sat down with a bowl of pasta, and the first sequence. No, am I misremembering this? People are just getting chopped up and thrown off ledges and everything, and I'm sitting there with my pasta, and I'm like, "Ooh, well, this bad timing." I guess I'm not really bothered by that, honestly. I kept eating.
I don't think I'm really bothered by that either. Like the whole don't talk about puke when I'm eating. Or
Yeah, it's not. Yeah.
Don't talk about your bowel movement. I'm not. Like if I see or hear someone do like if someone gagging, if I see someone gagging, especially if I'm drunk, yes, that's an issue. I can't I can't handle. It's not too bad. Like there's people who can't even hear people gagging without people.
They have a weak gag reflex, simply. Then again, if you're eating soup or a stew, that might be a different story. If the food in front of you is not very appetizing, poorly plated.
Yeah.
Might be. Go watch The Platform. It's on Netflix.
My recommendation of the week is an older movie. And I know that a lot of people are already like, oh, what the fuck? An older movie?
Is it black and white?
Oh, exactly. It's not that old. It won't be in black and white. And it is from what a lot of people think is the best decade for movie making, which is the 80s. Some other people say the 70s. Everyone has their own taste. I'm not here to debate that. Point is, the movie came out in 1988. It's called Heathers. And it's directed by Michael Lehman. And it stars a very young and very funny Winona Ryder. And also Christian Slater.
Nice.
It's a coming-of-age movie, which you know I love, and it's a comedy, and also it's a comedy that was done in the 80s, and I'm pretty sure it's R-rated, and movies are not written that way anymore, man. Like, they're really not. But point is, it's a really funny movie. It's about this girl, so Winona Ryder, and she is she's like newly a part of the group of the popular girls, and the popular girls in her school are all named Heather. So there's 3 of them: Heather, Heather, and Heather. And then this guy played by Christian Slater arrives at the high school, and he's a new guy, and he's like edgy and like a bad guy, like a bad boy kind of thing. And him and Winona Ryder bond over their hate for the popular kids, and they start killing the popular kids. It is so good, and it is so funny, and it's so dark. Whoa. But it's also just really, really cool.
I kind of want to see Winona Ryder going around killing popular chicks.
Yeah. No, it's honestly, everything about it reminds, like, I read a bunch of stuff about the movie, and it just makes sense. Like, because this movie exists, movies like Mean Girls exist,
right?
You know, where it's like, if you look at Mean Girls, it's a very like straightforward movie until Rachel McAdams gets run over by a bus, which comes out of nowhere. But it is such a violent moment in the movie that is otherwise not that violent of a movie. And that's how the murder scenes in this movie come across, where it's like you're watching a high school movie where it's like really normal, and then suddenly they're like killing a person, and then it goes back to a normal high school movie, and then they kill another person. It's really well written. It's very quotable. I think you would enjoy it a lot, Algot. But don't quote me on that, because you keep surprising me as to which movies you like and which ones you don't. Let's jump into this week's movie.
Woo! You were excited, I heard.
Yeah. So I've been wanting. Okay, we're talking about The Killing of a Sacred Deer. and it's Yorgos Lanthimos, who we've spoken about before. We've done The Lobster, and so he did The Lobster, and then he did this one, and then he did The Favorite. I've watched all three of those. I really enjoyed all three of those. And I was excited because I've been wanting to watch this movie for a while. But it always seemed like the type of movie that you had to be in a certain mood for. So I was always like, I mean, I could watch it, but do I feel like being depressed for like an hour afterwards? But thankfully, I had no idea what the movie was about. Like, I never saw a trailer.
Same.
I saw the poster, and I saw a lot of people talk about it when The Favorite was around for Oscar season, but I never actually knew what it was about. And once we get into like the spoilers and all that stuff, I'll tell you exactly what was going through my mind for most of the start of this movie. But yeah, I was excited. So Yorgos Lanthimos directed it, and he also wrote it with Efthimis Philippou, and I'm sorry if I totally butchered that. And it stars Colin Farrell, who was with him for The Lobster, and then Nicole Kidman and Barry Keoghan. And it's a weird one. It's a weird one, but I think I think we were ready for it because of The Lobster to a certain extent.
Honestly, I hadn't read into the movie that much, as you said. But as soon as I heard the dialogue, it was like, oh, it's that director. I hadn't thought about it. It was like very clearly George's with the entire dialogue. It's his trait. It's unique.
Yeah, I think Yorgos Lanthimos is what Wes Anderson would have been if he had a more traumatic childhood. You know?
Yes.
Like, they share a lot of very similar stylistic choices, and I think it's going to be interesting to talk about those, especially because we just spoke about Wes Anderson last episode. So he's like very much in the forefront of my head. So watching this, I was like, this is definitely what Wes Anderson would be if he was like more fucked up, right? Like, if he wanted to make his movies as dark as the themes that he sometimes touches on, he would be making a Yorgos Lanthimos movie, which is not a bad thing. They're both really good, and I really enjoy both of their work. But yeah, what did you think about it? Like, 5-minute review. Quickie.
I don't have much to say about it, non-spoilery, honestly. So I'm gonna let you cover that point. But I'm gonna preface my opinion on it by saying that I'm not, like, personally, culturally, I don't know what you want to call it, but definitely culturally, you and I are on opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to this, which is very much present in the movie with the spiritual outwardly, or like universe and energies and all of that kind of things. I'm not very receptible to it. So that didn't resonate with me in the same sense that, like, even something like in Hereditary, when you bring up cultism and all of those kind of things, I can enjoy that more, but it just, it's definitely cultural, whereas things are just not scary to some people. Like, ghosts terrify certain cultures, while evil spirits terrifies others. Yeah. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend this movie, actually.
Fair.
With that as a preference. The Lobster, in my book, is a better watch.
Interesting. Non-spoilery. If you like movies by Stanley Kubrick, like Eyes Wide Shut, Barry Lyndon, maybe even The Shining.
Oh yeah,
I'd say you could give this a shot for sure. If you don't like Stanley Kubrick's work, you're probably not gonna like this. You're probably gonna think it's kind of stupid. Also, if you don't like the way that characters say their lines in Wes Anderson movies, you're probably gonna hate this even more. So yeah, that's what I think. I enjoyed it personally. I thought it was really dope. I think there's a lot of things that I enjoyed about this movie. I liked it more than The Lobster, for sure.
Okay.
especially because for me, the whole dialogue delivery, like deadpan kind of stale stuff, didn't work for The Lobster, but it worked really, really well here.
Okay.
So that's just what I feel. So let's get into spoilers.
Spoiler warning.
This is your spoiler warning. Quick summary of the movie. The movie's about Colin Farrell's character, Steven, and how he is a cardiothoracic surgeon who kind of like establishes this weird relationship with an ex-patient's son. And then, you know, some weird shit starts to happen in his life, and it all kind of ties back to this kid. And that's kind of like the movie.
I disagree with you on the point of dialogue with The Lobster. I feel like this being a movie set in reality, it makes less sense to have an outwardly sense of dialogue.
But it's not, though. It's supposed to be the year like 2047.
Yeah, but who talked like that in 2047? It's awkward and it's stale of a conversation.
The only line I'm gonna give you where it's like, what the fuck, is when all the kids are in the girls' room, and she goes, "Is that your MP3 player?" And I'm like, "What year is this?"
I didn't mind the way the dialogue is constructed. Of course, there is a few reviews online or critics even that complain and don't feel like it's adding to the movie. I don't mind it, but I would argue that it works better in The Lobster because it's more of a sci-fi. It's more clearly less set in reality, I feel. It's not as well, it is a drama, but it's more of a sci-fi as well as a drama. Well, yeah, you get what I mean.
Here's the thing. I feel like with this movie, because it is kind of like a thriller, kind of like you're supposed to be unsettled by what's happening, I just thought everything kind of added to it. Like the sound work in it was so like in your face, and it was constantly making me anxious. And the way that they speak makes me anxious because people don't speak that way, right? So like it's weird and it's off-putting. So I'm uncomfortable, which I think is the point.
And you definitely have moments, for example, when the father is talking to his son, trying to have him open up, and he's revealing this big secret, and it's just weird the way the dialogue is constructed. And I do enjoy the characters and how socially awkward they are, if you want to call it in that sense. They just don't have any boundaries per se. They're just bluntly saying their stream of consciousness in some cases, like almost like they were children, just being completely honest all the time.
Yeah,
and that's kind of cool to see.
I think what's really interesting about this movie is how it is set up. In that, because I knew nothing about the movie, for the first third of it, I thought that there was some weird, like, freaky shit going on between the doctor
and the kid.
and the kid. Like, it was weird, dude. Like, their interactions were really fucked up.
It's a very intimate relationship that they have.
Yeah, and like the way that he keeps it secret, and the way that they talk to each other, and the way that they meet in secret, and the way he's like, "I told you not to come to the hospital, and you can call me, like you have my phone number," and then he gives them this really expensive gift, and I'm like, is he like your sugar daddy? Like, what is happening here? Like, I don't get it. And that made me want to keep watching the movie, which kind of tells you a lot about who I am and what I like in movies, if this kind of weird shit was enticing to me.
It is kind of your taste in movie, though, isn't it?
Well, you know what? I was watching it, and I was sitting through it, and I was like nervous, and I was like really into it, and I was like, why do I do this to myself, man? Like, I started thinking about it when we were watching Mother, which is a great episode, and you should check it out if you haven't. But why do I enjoy looking at movies that make me deeply uncomfortable. Like
Intense.
Climax is another movie that is just
Yeah.
and I don't know why. It just like I want to rewatch it. Like I've been thinking about rewatching it, but coming back to this, yeah, I think it is a type of movie that I really enjoy, and it explores ideas that you don't see usually, and I really, really appreciate when someone does that artistically. And I understand why maybe a lot of people were off put by this movie, because we don't talk about that type of shit on our day-to-day basis. And you don't want to go and like a lot of people don't like the idea of going to the movie theater and sitting down watching this. And you're like, fuck, you know, like why did I have to sit through 2 hours of that, you know?
Yeah, but this movie is intense, definitely. It has a lot of moments with I mean, heck, the movie opens up with a close-up of the operation going on, which later makes a lot of sense with that opening shot, which I appreciate. But yeah, I wouldn't call it gory, but there's definitely a lot of blood, and not only that, like there's people being beat up and bleeding and spitting blood and stuff, but on top of that, there's the uncomfortableness of family members being deeply hurt, and just the pain and suffering that we're sitting through is intense. So yeah, there's many layers to that sensation.
Yeah,
for sure. But do go on about the concept or whatever.
So it's based on a play, an ancient Greek tragedy, because, you know, I think it's really cool when people take stuff from ancient times and like kind of bring it back and they put their own spin to it.
And
so
George
it's based
is
on a
very
myth.
good at utilizing Greek mythology. Is that correct to say? Yeah. His modern takes on that, essentially.
For sure. I think he does a great job. So basically in the original myth, Agamemnon accidentally kills a sacred deer that is very precious to the goddess Artemis.
Okay.
And so the goddess Artemis makes it so that his army can't leave. Well, not leave, but like they get lost at sea and they can't find their way out of the ocean unless Agamemnon kills one of his daughters. I think the eldest daughter. I might be wrong. To kind of balance out the scales. And we kind of see that like right away in the movie. That's basically what happens. Like he was drunk, and arguably he stops drinking because he kills Martin's father.
Right. Yeah.
In the surgery, and then Martin tells him that the only way for it to be balanced out and for it to be justice, he needs to now kill a member of his family. So let's walk through the movie and we can talk about it and how we felt as we move on. So like you said, the movie starts with this, like, it starts with a black screen, actually. A really long black screen. And then you're like, right. Can this just like start? And then it's like an open heart surgery. And you're like, what the fuck? And it's a close-up and it kind of moves away, which is something that I really enjoyed about the movie is the camera work for it, the framing and the movement of it. And
very interesting framing, yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like, so from what I understood of the movie, Yorgos touches on two big themes per se, which in one hand you have control, and on the other hand you have this idea of justice being something that should be non-ethical, non-moral, and it's just something that has to be fair per se. You know, this whole idea of like, if you cut out my eye, the only way for us to be square would be for me to cut your eye out. Yeah.
Balance of the universe, if you will.
Yeah. And here's what I read on an interview with Yorgos. The reason the camera moves the way that it moves and the way that it relates back to the theme of control is that he is, in fact, making homage to Stanley Kubrick, who is arguably one of the biggest control freaks in the like filmmaking community. And if you look at it, like the second shot after the open heart sequence is him and his anesthesiologist walking down a corridor, which is like the biggest shining reference ever. Like the way that it's shot, it's just below the eye level instead of being straight on with them, and it's kind of like far away, and you're just going down this corridor and they're talking about their watches, and it is such a weird thing to talk about, but it all comes back to this idea of control. And that's why people keep talking about Colin Farrell's character's hands and how beautiful they are, because surgeons, there's a stereotype about them how they are very big control freaks, because in reality they're kind of like, they kind of have like their patients' lives in their hands. And so this whole movie is about how he struggles to control things in his life, and he can't control them. So it's like things are going out of, like things are slipping from his fingers as he tries to squish them and make them make sense. Like, and you see moments of that, like when he tries to force feed his child donuts, where it's like he's so desperate to make things make sense and take things under control, make things under his own control, and he can't. Right? So I thought just like the idea of homaging a director, tying back to one of the main themes of the movie, was something that you don't really see. Like usually an homage to a director is because you like their style and you're like, yeah, man, it's a cool shot. Like I would want to do that. But in this case, he's going the extra mile into like, holy shit, man, like what if I homage this guy who's a famous control freak, because I want it to tie back into my main character and his loss of control and kind of like his descent into madness. I thought it was dope.
That's cool. I kind of actually overlooked that with the hands and everything. I actually didn't see why everybody thought his hands were so pretty, but I guess I don't have a hand fetish, so it beats me. Basically, I think we briefly covered it, but this, what would you call, or does he have a name, that other character, the kid? The kid works, I guess. Martin?
Which one?
Okay. Yeah, the guy.
The teenager or the little kid?
The teenager. Is that Martin?
That would be, that's Martin, yeah.
Like first impressions with that guy? It's like, he's weird. He's disturbed is not the word I'm looking for. He's mentally unstable and seems to have more than one issue in his life, basically. But it's nice to see that our main guy actually cares for him and is trying to support him, as we later realize he feels guilty. Yeah.
I would say so, right?
Yeah, as he ultimately, I mean, he doesn't blame himself for being the cause of death of his father, but yes, his life were in his hands. At least he claims so. It's more complex than that, for sure. As the story goes on, we realize that Martin definitely has more of a grief with our guy, our main surgeon guy, and is ultimately looking for avenging for the death of his father. And I this is where it kind of loses me, right? Where I'm not kind of buying into the whole concept, and I think that's why it's ultimately failing with me, just because I'm not susceptible to the idea. But is it him putting a curse on him, or is it more simple than that?
I'm not sure. Personally, at first, they make it seem like he's putting a curse on them.
Right.
But to be completely honest, I think it has more to do with like something bigger than us. Like, I feel like it's more of a karma, like the universe seeking to even things out kind of thing.
That's what it's playing with. Like, I actually do enjoy the way they go about explaining it all, because they're in a pressed situation time-wise. It's in a stressful environment, and we only get so much time for Martin to explain what's about to happen, and we just get a taste of and take in just a little bit of what he says. Of course, our character is completely discarding that and pretends not to hear what he's saying because, you know, he's crazy or whatever.
Which makes sense.
Right? You
Right,
would
like-
react that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be like, this is...
It's
Which
a
is an
lot to hear
interesting
that
balance.
your kids are about to die in a horrible, horrible way with bleeding tears or blood tears. Yeah, man.
Yeah. What I enjoy is that the subtle ways that Yorgos Lanthimos lets you know that this is not a movie like other movies. And I think that starts with dialogue. Like dialogue and how it is communicated really helps with that. I feel like with setting a tone and what the tone is going to be for the rest of the movie.
Tone is
And
good.
if you think about all of the conversations that they have, they're so weird, but at the same time they never feel out of place. Like they feel real. They feel like these characters would say these type of things, right? Where it's like you have so many conversations about the human body that you wouldn't really show in movies and TV shows. Like the whole idea of body hair that starts between Steven's kid and Martin when they're at Steven's house, and how that translates into when Martin goes and gets himself checked out by Steven, and how he's like starts interrogating him about like how much body hair he has and stuff like that. And you're like, first of all, right? That's why I thought this whole movie up to a certain point was gonna be like about like this weird sexual relationship and shit. Because like, it just like it is so weird, their interactions. And then when you find out that Steven's son can't walk, also if you name your kid Robert, don't call him Bob until he's like 55. Like that's just mean. That's a crime.
Yeah.
Call him Robert. That's why you called him. Like whenever they said Bob, at first I was like, "Where's the 55-year-old guy, man? Like, who are they talking to?"
Yeah.
So when the first time that you see that Bob can't move, like when he tells him like, "Oh, I can't move my legs," I was like, "Did Martin come back and do something to him? Like, is this like a?"
Yep. You
Right?
get the sense of it. It's definitely the way it's constructed, and it's cool. It's really nice.
Yeah.
Which makes me like feel like that's why I'm asking the question. Like, is he putting the curse directly? He seems very involved with every step of the way, even when he starts to hang out with the sister or daughter.
I understand why the movie loses you. I understand why it's kind of like, what? And I do think it has to do with kind of like this idea that you're talking about, like a cultural difference and how you don't really get affected by that type of stuff. But I think it's a really interesting take on a very old story where it's like, you know, in ancient times and ancient storytelling, a lot of the things that happened were just like because a deity decided that you were deserving of a punishment, right?
Yep.
However, I do enjoy how he approaches these topics, like how I always think a moral dilemma is a really interesting thing to approach film-wise. And this idea of like, I have to kill one of you so that all four of us don't die, right? Are there easier ways to do it? Yes. Like this whole scene where he's playing like Russian roulette with them and he misses twice. It's really well constructed and I was like really into it. But at the same time, I was like, I think there's simpler ways of you guys to do this.
Yeah, just hip firing, spinning around. That's a little bit. I know it increases the odds of just. It's not you consciously committing the decision, sure, but like you could have thought of something more clever, and not put your family through 2 missed shots. Like, oh, jeez.
I mean, your family and us too, man. Because it's like. You're just there and you're just watching it and you're just like, holy shit, man. Like, I will tell you this though, I thought at some point there was only one moment when I really thought he was going to kill his daughter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But like that whole segment of when he's trying to figure out who he's going to kill is so well done, right? Because he goes through the usual steps, and I love how he even goes to their school and he tries to talk to the principal, and he's like, which one do you like more, man? Like, throw me a bone here.
But as you said, like it's always pretty clear that the obvious choice to the character is the son, because he has a conversation with his wife that, or the wife's argument is essentially like, well, he's the youngest, like, we could just have another one. Man,
it's like when businesses are going through rough times and they're like, man, last one in, first one to go. Sorry.
I mean, it makes sense in the way the dialogue works, and they're very objective, and again, they're just speaking their own thoughts out loud, essentially. But it never, like, as an audience member watching it, the daughter is kind of a brat compared to the son. And to me, they could have done it slightly, I don't know how, and it's difficult. It's very difficult. But I didn't feel the balance between us. It was very clear that we as audience member wanted to really not want the son to die, and the sister could have just gone. We didn't care much about her. We cared a lot about the son, because she is mean to him, and she's like, you're gonna have to die. I'm gonna have to survive because I'm the oldest. But can I have your empathy?
Dude, and that moment when she, that moment when she's like, "Can I have your MP3 player when you die?" I was like, "Oh shit, that's."
And then we end up with him actually leaving it to the chance and playing Russian roulette with them. And of course, the boys and ends up dying. And I don't know. I feel like, do you agree with me on that one? I feel like I kind of missed some compassion to the other people that were possible victims of this. I felt like we had compassion mostly with the boy, the son, and not so much with even the wife in this case. Like, the balance could have been more where we were less expecting who was gonna go. That's how I felt about it.
Yeah, and I think it comes back to what you're saying about how involved was Martin's character within all of this, right? Because there comes to a point where you're like, did he, like, if he did put this curse on them, did he also like brainwash the daughter? Because I understand they have like a relationship thing going on, and that's fine. Like, I get it. Like, teen love can be crazy. But there's a point where I'm like, is there more to it? Like, is she actually in love with him? Is this part of the curse? It's like, So yeah, no, sure. I agree. Personally, I didn't want the boy to die. I thought the girl should have died. And when she's like telling Steven all of this, like, oh, I would die for you. Let me die for you. Like, I don't understand why. Like I said, I feel like there would have been easier ways to choose who would die. But then again, like, even saying it like that sounds like an asshole thing to say, because like, you've never been put in a position where you have to choose between arguably the three people that you love the most, right? And like, I was reading some reviews about the movie where people were like, I mean, if it was my child and if I was a mother, I would give my life for my child.
Right.
But I don't think it's that easy, right? Like, I feel what I really enjoy about Nicole Kidman's character is that Anna as a mother is not, like, she's a loving mother, and you can see that. That she loves the boy, and like, she's very straightforward in that kind of way because she's a mother. But I also feel like as a society, we don't tend to talk about mother characters because they're so stereotypical. And there's so many guidelines as to what a good mother should be. And this is, I think, is a good way of challenging those views, where it's like, not because she's a mother doesn't mean that she would be willing to give her life for one of them, you know?
Sure.
And then you have this whole like scene where she's like, hey man, let's kill the little one. Worst case scenario, we have another one. You can have one. I can have one. You know, we'll get over it.
Yes, because in many ways, Steven is the one that is contemplating about who to kill. I mean, ultimately, it's his decision, sure. But the other characters are not very involved in this. And I feel like that's what they're really succeeding well at. We're really sensing not necessarily the urgency, because he's definitely taking his time with this.
Yeah, you don't really
decision.
feel the urgency until like the blood comes and you're like, oh shit.
I mean, there's no urgency, but there's definitely high stakes, and we sense that, which is great. It's very well executed in that sense.
Yeah,
definitely.
Like you can feel the pressure that he's in, where he like actually doesn't know what to do. Mostly because, like you said, if you heard this was happening to your family, you would think it's insane. Like you wouldn't buy into it right away.
No.
Like it would take some time. Yeah, like it would take some time for you to be like, okay, this is the thing that I have to go through. I think the reason why a lot of people might struggle with this movie is simply because it's breaking a lot of ideal stereotypes when it comes to the American family. Where it's like Nicole Kidman's ready to fucking like, you know, kill one of the kids instead of being like, oh, kill me, I will sacrifice myself for all of you. Like, I think where the movie succeeds the most is when it touches upon the heavier themes of it. And I think it's really interesting. Like I've been reading a book about storytelling, and it's called Into the Woods. And in it, the author argues that all forms of storytelling are the same. And it's not that they're formulaic, but it's just that stories are so built into our brains and our DNA as humans, like as a human species, because we've always told stories, maybe not always as entertainment. Maybe in olden times it was more of like teaching a lesson. And he talks about like the importance of a midpoint, and he gives various examples of like movies that hit a midpoint, and then he goes on to say like all midpoints are important. And so I've been trying to figure out midpoints in different movies, and like Parasite has a really, really important midpoint if you look at it. And I feel like the more that I look into it, midpoints are really important. And I think this movie is also like a before and after kind of thing, because up until the daughter's legs fail, he still thinks this is a medical thing. He still thinks that this is something that he can correct and he can control. But then, and it happens right at the middle of the movie. Like, it's insane. If you look at it, the middle of the movie is a scene where she's in choir practice and she falls down. And then everything changes. Everything turns into this kind of mystical thing where it's like, where it kind of loses you, actually, Alga, because it becomes more of a mysticism, more of a spiritual universe kind of thing.
It takes a bit of a turn around that time. It definitely escalates with not only the stakes, but with the action. There's more actions taken by the main character, and for example, the kidnapping of Martin happens, and everything is just increased, turned to the max. Because up until that point, it's more dramatic and just crying boo-hoo, and after that, it's more. We heard again very briefly about crying blood, or however he describes it, tears of blood. Man, that shot, that's so well
with
made.
The little kid where he's sitting down.
That is so. Ooh, I had to look away. It's like lingering on the kid, and the kid is just, there's blood is just pouring. Wow, it's very intense. It's really cool.
Even when he's like trying to clean it off from him, like after
Mhm.
It's very icky. Yeah.
I wonder how they made that, because I mean, it must have been some sort of tube going up somewhere somehow for it to continuously stream down his face. It's really nicely done. I don't know if it's interesting or not, but the sex scenes, yeah. What is really going on? Because we see sex 2 or 3 times. First, very early in the movie, we see Steven and his wife, and what is it the wife asks? Casual or artistic?
General anesthetic.
And he picks aesthetic, no? Or no, general?
No. So, general anesthetic is one word, technically. It's like one concept. Where, from what I understand, so anesthetic is what they put into you.
General
like
anesthetic. Oh, I heard that wrong.
It's like, do you want a general or like aesthetic? Which one is it? What are you going for here? Are we going artsy or like straight up porno? No, I got it. She said general anesthetic, and that's why
that answers the question. That makes sense.
That's why she passes out, quote unquote. Like, but that's what I mean, right? Like, this whole movie up until the little kid can't move his legs is so weirdly sexual, where you know, this guy has a weird fetish about having sex with a person who's under general anesthetic, and it's technically
and it's wrong. It's so wrong. It is uncomfortable. Like, there is a few things in this world that I can get with, but that's did not sit right.
Yeah.
And it's good to know like that I have boundaries myself.
I thought, because it's actually definitely really weird. And here's the thing about movies that are not shot like other movies. They have to be consistent, right? So the sex scenes are also shot very wide, very cold, very detached. And you're not like, we're not used to seeing that in sex scenes. So it was interesting to, like, you're there with Nicole Kidman and then boom, your wide angle, she's like passed out and this guy is just like looming over her.
Yeah. And even more disturbingly, later on we see the daughter doing the same setup where she is passing out on the bed completely naked, expecting.
Yeah.
Well, he kindly says no to the offer, but like she must have seen something, or they might as well have spoken about it at the dinner table, because this movie is crazy like that. But she definitely has the idea of sex being unconscious, and that's weird.
Yeah, it's an interesting parallel.
Here's the last thing that I want to talk about in the movie as a discussion topic, whatever. To me, something that it doesn't really that I'm hesitant of, or that I'm curious to see your input on, is character development, as we've spoken about that previously in other movies. Because in this one, I'm not sure if there is much character development, in the sense that the characters learn anything from it, take anything from it, because ultimately he kills his son, and they are living a happy, not so happy life afterwards. Not much has changed, other than, I guess, the universe is on balance again, or like, what is the message with that? Is there a metaphor that I'm missing?
I think this is one of the biggest things when you talk about adapting certain source materials. Because some of them, like fairy tales, do have character growth, but it's not necessarily the character growth that we're used to. Yeah. Usually, when it comes to these older stories, the ones that should be doing the growth is the audience.
That
right?
makes sense
Like
to me,
the lessons are not there for the characters, but for us as onlookers, as viewers, as consumers of the stories, right? Like Hansel and Gretel or Cinderella or The Little Mermaid, even in their, sugar-coated Disney versions, have lessons in them. But it's not necessarily the characters who learn anything. It's more like what do we take away from them? Right? Because like that's the main point of most stories that come from older times and ancient times. It's like they were meant as warnings, as lessons for little kids. Hansel and Gretel, don't be a brat, don't wander off into the woods by your own, like shit like that.
No, I'm totally on board with that. That makes a lot of sense to me. I'm unsure if it's really succeeding the same way being a modern media, or even like in today's society, if it has the same impact. Because to me, that I was questioning what really happened. I wonder if not that the ending was happy and forever after, but maybe a more unhappy ending would have left it more open-ending and open for interpretation in that sense. Maybe
like the murder of one child is not enough. You need both of them to fucking die.
Hey man, the son hadn't done much. He was just really unfortunate with that one. Because when he started putting bags on every family member, I was almost expecting that it was gonna be a suicide pact.
No, that's what I thought too.
Right? What if that would have been the case? Then everybody would have died and it would have been miserable, but maybe we would have looked within ourselves more.
Yeah, because then you would have brought the whole thing about control back to it. Right? Like if he had decided that he was going to kill everyone and he was going to kill himself just so that he could have an ounce of control back into his life, because that's what he feels out throughout, like that he's lost control over every single aspect of his life. Because he had control over every one of them. Right, like he had control over his daughter's singing technique, and he had control over what his wife would wear, and he had control over the way that his surgeries went, and I feel like this whole thing is about how he loses that sense of control. So I agree with you in that two things. The first one, the ending doesn't necessarily land with me, and also I'm not necessarily like, I love how themes are approached and I love how things are talked about, but I don't know what the end game was, right? Like if you look at and even with the original myth, I'm not sure what Agamemnon was supposed to learn. Like, don't fuck with sacred deers. I mean, that should have been something he should have understood before he killed a sacred deer,
Yeah. I guess he's learned his lesson now, or have they?
I don't know, because if you want to go there, he technically learned his lessons because he was sober. He'd been sober for 3 years.
Right?
Like
that's why it's conflicting also.
Arguably, his lesson was learned. That's why I feel like everything about this movie is way more about like that's why I don't think it's a curse that Martin puts on them, and it's more of a universe thing, because yes, he learned his lesson by today's standards, but if you go back to like archaic times, justice is justice, and justice was not served because he had a complete life, he had a happy life, and he murdered someone.
I wonder if it would have helped or worked even reconnecting with Martin slightly there in the end. Don't know what, but maybe that would have made more of a conclusion to the story.
Can we talk about really? Yeah, go ahead.
Speaking of which, do you think, like Martin's mother, if Stephen just would have slept with her, would it all have been fine?
I don't know, but I'm glad that you brought up Steven's mother because I don't know if you recognize her because I know you don't think about this type of stuff, but that's
I have
Bad
no
Girl.
idea. That's who?
Bad Girl?
No way.
Yes, that's Bad Girl from Batman and Robin.
From Batman.
That's
Where
Alicia
has she
Silverstone.
been since? Was it conversation topics to cover on your part?
I honestly love the camera work on this movie.
I only paid attention much to the framing, and I'm not too sure how it plays into it all. But yes, it's beautiful.
I love how he frames everyone on their own.
Mm-hmm.
Like the amount of times that he uses a 2-shot, I think you can count them in both of your hands.
I love the amount of headspace he's giving.
Yeah,
the characters in many shots.
Also,
there's probably something deep about that and metaphysical about it. I don't really know what, but it's beautiful to look at, and he's playing with space, the negative space, a whole bunch.
He wanted the camera to feel like there was someone or something watching these characters. That's why the camera sometimes starts from far away and then it comes into the room with them, because it's like you're spying on these characters. Where it's like you slowly creep into the conversation. And I love how many times the camera is not pointing at the person who's talking. Usually directors always frame the person who's talking for most of the scene.
Mm-hmm.
And he does it the other way, where it's most of the scene, he's on someone else. He's on the person who is receiving the information. And you're in that headspace with them. And you're like a really good example of that is when Anna goes to Martin's house to confront him. And he's like, she tells him, dude, it's kind of unfair that you want to punish my husband and you're punishing all of us. And he's like, yeah, no, shit happens.
Yeah.
But when he's telling her about, these lies about Martin's mom and Steven and the relationship that they have, it's all on her. It's all on Nicole Kidman. And that's why it's really cool to see these big actors. Because Colin Farrell. It is, right? Because I said it wrong last time.
Oh.
Okay. Colin Farrell.
Will Ferrell.
And Nick.
Oh, God, no.
It's really cool to see big actors like Colin Farrell and Nicole Kidman in these roles where, first of all, most of their scenes are not like heavy dramatic scenes, even though we're dealing with really heavy topics.
Yeah.
The only like big scene that they have would be when she's like, we should probably believe Martin about this being some weird fucked up voodoo. And he's like, yeah, we're gonna burn some fucking virgin pubes. Do you have some leftover virgin pubes? And like that whole scene is like arguably the most dramatic, stereotypical scene. And then the rest of the movie is so deadpan and so subtle in the way that they deliver their lines and the way that they act. But a moment that I love is when they're in the hospital and they're talking to the other doctors and they're like, we've done everything that we can. So this is probably like psychosomatic. And Anna's like, yeah, it's probably psychosomatic. And Steven goes, bitch, I don't want your opinion. Like, you're an eye doctor. I don't care about what you have to say. Like, if our kid needed glasses, I would go to you. But right now, your opinion means shit to me. Just like the subtleness of Nicole's reaction to those. It reminds me of the subtleties that we saw in Mother in Jennifer Lawrence's character when she feels betrayed and she feels like she's being stepped on. And you're just like, how are you so good at transmitting these emotions without being so dramatic and so big like some other actors are,
like what we were talking about, the dramaticness of it all. I feel like the balance, contrast, whatever you would say, is very well nuanced, where they're playing this role as a character that's fairly muted all the way throughout, or like the movie itself is fairly muted. other than these big, extraordinary scenes when he's throwing cutlery all over the place. But it's very good balance to that. And for sure, reactions, they're just hard. It's great acting. And yeah, it's good that you bring it up. We definitely should value those a lot more. Directors who dare to linger on reaction shots a lot. That's telling us more than looking at the person giving the dialogue. Reactions can say so much about a scene, the setting, the tone, and everything. But it's hard. That requires
they're hard
very
to do.
good actor.
Exactly. And I feel like with this and with The Lobster, you see Yorgos holding shots way more than normal.
Yeah.
Uncomfortable ones at that too, you know? But the way that he directs his actors and the way that he relies on his actors to simply like sell it, right? Like you talked about that moment where you see the blood coming into the little boy's, into Bob's eyes.
Bob.
It's not like a huge dramatic thing. Like he could have been like, "Oh my God, what is happening?" Like, but the reason why it's so unsettling is because first of all, he holds on it for like a while, and it takes a second for Bob to react to what's happening, and you're just there with him, and you know what it means, and he knows what it means, and he just holds it there, on like a 12-year-old boy or however old he is. That's trusting your actors to a degree that I don't think a lot of people do. And it's really interesting.
Very good performance, I would say, especially from Bob, or Bob's actor. No, I was gonna say, like, that sequence in particular, it's just, I don't think there's any dialogue, and he's just wiping away tears of blood. But that comes up a few times where there are moments with no dialogue at all, and we're just lingering on shots, not all the time with strong reactions to anything. We're just lingering on that, and it works. It's amazing. But to start to reach a conclusion of this, I feel like, I mean, I really appreciate the moments that are, but I feel like the bigger flaw for me is that I feel like it droned on a bit too long. It's a bit too slow of a burn. Granted, that might be because I'm just not resonating with the concept a strong way. I think it comes down to that, where this movie just doesn't sit with me in the same way that it would, that a different movie like The Lobster would. The Lobster to me was more interesting. I was more invested, simply enough. That's basically what it comes down to if I were to give my closing thoughts.
Okay. Closing thoughts. I really like the performances, and I really like the camera work, and the story was engaging enough to me that I was invested in it, and I was really into it. I do feel like the movie droned on a little bit more than I would have liked to. Like, it definitely felt longer than 2 hours. And, you know, the fact that I don't see the end point, the end game, like, what was it? You know, I love the themes that it touches on, and I love how it deals with certain situations, but I also don't see the like, I don't see past that. Like you said, like, if the characters didn't learn anything, then we should have. But I don't know if we did.
No, unfortunately.
So
we got
I did enjoy it more
and wrap up to the story, but I'm not sure if it was very memorable of an ending.
I enjoyed it more than The Lobster. Just like on a personal, like I enjoy thrillers. I enjoy this idea of like I don't know what's gonna happen, and because I didn't know anything about the movie going into it, and having to catch up to it, and having to deal with like my brain going off in these tangents of like, oh my God, it's like a sugar daddy relationship, and then like, oh my God, maybe he raped Bob and that's why he can't move, and then you know, all of these things that kept my brain going. I definitely enjoyed that. And it also, like, The Lobster felt longer to me, to be completely honest.
No, I get that.
But Yeah. So in terms of ratings, Sagat, what are you thinking?
I will give it a 2.5 out of 5.
Okay, I thought you enjoyed it a little bit more than that. Okay.
Nah, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine, man. I don't know why you need to apologize. The whole point of this is that we don't agree on everything.
I'm glad that you clarified the title of the movie. I thought it was just a metaphor, but no, it had a stronger connection than that.
No, when I found that out, I was like, "That's really cool."
That makes sense.
I think honestly, given how much I enjoyed it, I think I would. I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. I thought it was really good. I thought it was really well written. I think the performances are amazing. I've seen these actors, like all three of them, in other movies. I don't think I've seen them in anything like this, even with Colin Farrell, who was in The Lobster. So yeah, camera work, the performances, the writing, even the whole idea of like behind the movie. I really like mythology being adapted to modern times. Yeah. But the just like the pacing was a little bit off to me, and I wish the ending would have paid off in a bigger way for me personally. Like, I'm not saying it's a bad ending. I'm just saying it didn't necessarily land where I wanted it to. Because you're building up to this whole, climatic idea, and I understand why he's leaving it up to fate. I understand that it's too big of a challenging decision to make on your own. Like, yeah, I'm just gonna choose one of you to kill. But then even with that, I think we deserved a bit of a more normal, mainstream, dramatic conclusion to it, where like maybe everyone died, or maybe he eventually, I don't know what I would have done. I'm just going off of the feeling that it just didn't necessarily land.
I agree. So, something bigger, whatever that could be.
So with that, our conversation is over and our cup of coffee is over. And let us know in the comments if you enjoyed The Killing of a Sacred Deer by Yorgos Lanthimos, or if you thought it was not that great and you're on Algat's side of this discussion. You guys are wrong. Alrighty, Algat, how about you do the outro for us?
Of course. Please do actually recommend us some Christmas movie suggestions for the next episode, and we might take that into consideration depending on which one it is. We are picky eaters, me and Mao. Make sure to follow this podcast, subscribe on YouTube, follow on Spotify, whatever bell. Make sure to hit that, and you'll be notified next time we release a new episode with another movie. And we even have a TikTok these days. So go on TikTok and look up Films and Fika, or click the link in the description. Follow us there. Follow us on Letterboxd. You have all the links that you need in the description. Anything I miss?
No.
Good. Thank grief. Good grief.
Alrighty. Bye, Algat.
Signing out.